Daniel had always imagined himself saving lives in a teaching hospital, not counting drugs behind a dusty counter, but when his school had gone on a very long break, he had no other choice. His parents could no longer keep up with sending him monthly stipends. His younger ones hoped their lives would become better when he starts making big money, but his life had been thrown into a survival mode. That was how he started working in a small pharmacy store down his street. His job was to arrange and sell out prescribed drugs, so he told himself he was close to his dreams. He was close to medicine, and his job, to him, felt much better than staying at home. One night, after attending to the flood of patients that came in that day, Daniel was stacking up a few bottles left on the counter when the door of the store flung open. A middle-aged man staggered in, gasping for breath. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and Daniel's eyes widened with panic. The man held Daniel's cloak, screaming, "Doctor, help me, please." But he froze. His instincts kicked in. "You're not a doctor, at least not yet." He wanted to spill those words to the man almost kneeling before him, but he soon found his hands helping the man's head. He had collapsed. The man's body jerked violently while very thick whitish foams formed at the corners of his mouth. Daniel gently laid the man's head down and immediately dashed to the other side of the store to grab a textbook lying on one of the racks. His hands trembled as he flipped through its pages, but his head couldn't grasp the words staring back at him, so all he could do was scream for help, but his voice echoed in the silence. He dropped to his knees, trying to tilt the man's head. Soon, he fumbled with drug packs on the counter, his chest pounding louder than the man's convulsion. He felt so powerless. Then, the man's body became still. His chest wasn't rising anymore. His eyes stared open into the ceiling. Daniel's throat went dry. His panic rose as he tried to feel the man's pulse. He pressed on the man's chest the way he had once seen in a practical class, but nothing worked. The man's body was growing cold by each second passed. Something slipped out of the man's pocket, an ID card. Daniel glanced at the name and froze. The name was familiar. On the man's ID card, the name Williams stared back at him. Before he could process it, the door slammed open. Two men rushed in. Their eyes darted from the lifeless body to Daniel's trembling hands. "What happened here?" one barked. Daniel's lips quivered as he tried to explain, but the taller man snatched the ID card from his grip with a darkened expression. "You saw this?" the other asked. Daniel nodded hesitantly. The man stepped closer with a low but sharp voice. "Forget the name. Forget you ever touched him." Daniel's pulse raced. He watched as the man dragged the corpse out of the store, but not without one of the men turning to say, "This death isn't your problem, young man. Don't make it yours." They slammed the door hard, leaving Daniel scared to his bones. The morning gave way to whispers. The town buzzed with news of a sudden death, and Daniel's chest grew heavier with each rumor that reached his ears. By midday, the rumor had revealed that the deceased was Chief Adewale Williams, David's father, a man everyone respected. Daniel was numb from the information. Chief Adewale was the reason Daniel had the opportunity of being in the medical school. He was the unseen sponsor, the silent hand that footed his tuition fees when his family couldn't. Daniel had always dreamed of meeting him one day to say thank you. The day did come, but in a twisted turn of fate. Grief and guilt clawed at him. The scenes from that night replayed over and over. His shaky hands, the failed attempts, the breached pulse. The thoughts wouldn't just go away. The funeral came too soon. Mourners filled the compound, their voices heavy with sorrow. Daniel stood quietly at the back, wishing he did something to save the man's life. Then David found him, eyes swollen from tears, voice breaking. He pulled Daniel into a hug. "My father believed in you more than anyone else," David whispered. "Promise me you will make him proud." Daniel's throat burned. He forced a nod, swallowing the truth like poison. But as he walked away, he caught sight of the two strange men from the pharmacy standing at the edge of the crowd, watching him. The days that followed were hard for him. Every time David spoke about his father, his kindness, his legacy, Daniel felt his chest tighten. He began to dodge calls, cut short visits, and find excuses to stay away. But David noticed. Then the whispers came, in shops, on the streets, even outside the pharmacy. They carried the tales of the chief's death on their lips. Some said the chief died in his arms, others argued he was just a student, but soon the news got to Daniel. His fear grew. He couldn't sleep or eat. The weight was too much, the secret too heavy. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. His nights were battles, dreams of Chief Adewale gasping for breath, his lifeless eyes staring back at him. Every morning he woke up drenched in sweat, fists clenched, heart pounding. But he wasn't alone. The news had reached David's ears too. Daniel knew he had to tell David the truth, no matter the cost. The secret was beginning to eat him alive. So one evening, he made up his mind to speak to David. He did. But David spoke calmly after his confession and only asked him to stand with him to fight those who killed his father. They had become sworn brothers, ready to fight with their blood to bring Chief's killers to justice. While accusing fingers kept pointing at Daniel and the police had swung into action, both friends began to look for evidence that will bring the Chief's killers to justice. But the more they tried, the more Daniel was roped into the crime. When David thought his father's killers had slipped away, the pharmacy owner burst into the compound one day with a pale face and shaky hands. He had found a folded piece of paper in a corner of his store. That folded piece of paper would become the first puzzle that will uncover the real culprits behind the Chief's death. Days after, two men witnessed they had seen Chief arguing with two men a few blocks away from the pharmacy the day he died. The CCTV footage of the area was taken. The Chief and both men had discussed earlier on over a few bottles of alcohol, but unknown to him, they had slipped something into his drink. David demanded for the pictures of the men in the footage. His jaw dropped when he saw the faces. They were his father's brothers. David had always heard the trio speaking in hushed tones. He also remembered the night his father had called him into his inner room to show him a file. Those were his documents. He hadn't understood why he said everything he said that night, but when he began to piece the information together, that was when it hit him. They were fighting for his father's properties. Daniel's heart swelled with relief. The Chief hadn't died because he wasn't good enough. He had died because of his brother's greed. The police stormed into the brothers' compounds, each wearing a shocked face as the handcuffs settled on their hands. David's heart raced, but he felt relief. For the first time since his father's death, he could breathe. The truth was out, and justice had been served.